to the Postgame of the Michael Brooks Show. Welcome all patrons, welcome new patrons. We welcome and appreciate each and every one of you. We're here with the whole crew. Our guest finally returning, Napoleon Da Legend.
What's up? What's up, man?
How you doing, man?
Good to be back. Good to be back, man. It's crunch time right now, man.
It's absolutely. That's why we had you on.
I had to come for the clutch, man.
Yeah, we needed you for the major plays. Everybody, check out, of course, if you haven't yet, Patreon page. You can listen to Napoleon's music on YouTube, on SoundCloud, and all over the place. We're actually going to play a collaboration you did with the Serfs in a little bit,
all right,
which is a very interesting mashup of worlds. But we're going to start out of the gate with a debunk with our buddy. He's author of Give Them an Argument, Logic for the Left. He has a great Patreon page that I read regularly, of course. Ben Burgis. Ben, would you like Napoleon Da Legend to do a intro song for you?
That would be amazing.
That would actually be pretty amazing.
All right. Duly noted. I'm going to see what's up.
Duly noted. All right. I think that's possible. We also have...
I got to get my lexicon up when I come here, man.
Please not too much. We also have Will EQ, who's also been on the show, who's in Atlanta, who is also like... He's also this incredibly talented lyricist. And it's me talking with both of you to adding to the brilliant DJ Danarchy repertoire. So just letting everybody in on the little background production process here. But that being said, here is the great Moondug. That's who did Ben's song, Matt.
I want to go to mockery really bad.
I will. Okay.
Trying to credit the song quality.
Logical analysis. You're going to show us how to argue that.
This is based on data from a bunch of different countries. There's abundant evidence that at this point that's bullshit. Breaking down these right-wing arguments and looking at how they're supposed to fit together.
Okay.
Break it down.
Break it down. I like that song better each time. Ben Burgis, welcome.
Thank you.
What are we talking about, Ben?
Well, we're going to be talking about Fareed Zakaria and Bernie Sanders and Nordic social democracy. And of course, Bernie talks a lot about the Nordics, and maybe even too much, right? There's a criticism, that's made tactically that maybe he should spend more time talking about American social democracy, the completing the projects of the New Deal and the Great Society, and I'm sympathetic to that. I think sometimes some leftists hear that and think that's a call for him to maybe tone down the radicalism, but I don't think it needs to be read that way. I think there's actually a way to do it in a way that turns up the dial of radicalism. So something I've been thinking about lately, for example, is that a completely true historical thing that he could point out was that when the Johnson administration initiated Medicare for the elderly, that was supposed to be the first step towards single payer for everybody. Right. The next step was going to be one for kids, and the reason none of that happened is because deepening American involvement in Vietnam made expensive new social spending less plausible, right? So making that point would be a great way to tie together his foreign policy with his domestic proposals, and also show that he's continuing this longstanding tradition with mainstream American roots. But the Nordic stuff, even if it's too emphasized, it is important. Because oftentimes, whenever you propose change in anything, any kind of big reform, people will sort of play dumb about how that could possibly work, or say, this is just craziness. You're suggesting some leap into the unknown. So the more you can say, well, no, in this country, this country, this country, and this country, they've already got all this stuff and it works fine. The better off you are. When I was part of the adjunct professors union at Rutgers, and we were a lot of the things we were pushing for had already happened at the University of Michigan, so it was always fun watching the administration try to explain why the University of Michigan and Rutgers were such totally distinct, and unlike each other entities, that nothing that happened at one could possibly pertain to the other. And you see similar dynamics here. But so first we're going to watch just a short clip of Fareed Zakaria suggesting that Bernie has got it all wrong.
Now, just really quick question. Do we know that Fareed has actually written any of the things that he said? All right, sorry.
We know he at least read it out.
Yeah. Who is he reading in the New Yorker that we have to debunk? All right, go ahead.
I want to talk about Bernie Sanders, who is still, despite South Carolina, the odds-on favorite to win the Democratic nomination. Sanders says that his proposals are not radical at all, pointing again and again to countries in Northern Europe, such as Denmark, Sweden, and Norway, as examples of the kind of economic system he wants to bring to America. But is he right about these countries?
And he goes on in the clip, but we can just look at the Washington Post version, where in his article, it's entitled "Bernie Sanders Scandinavian Fantasy." He says, if you read the first paragraph there, the image he conjures up is of a warm and fuzzy social democracy in which market economies are kept on a tight leash through regulation, the rich are heavily taxed, and the social safety net is generous. That is, however, an inaccurate and highly misleading description of those Northern European countries today. Take billionaires. Sanders has been clear on the topic. Billionaires should not exist. But Sweden and Norway have more billionaires per capita than the United States. He goes on to talk about the estate tax, and other things, but the point that I really want to hit, if we scroll down, so the paragraph starting, in addition, he stressed,
you got it.
Countries such as Denmark had to stay extremely open, etc. When look at Northern Europe today, one finds many innovative high market-friendly policies such as educational vouchers, healthcare deductibles and copays, light regulatory burdens. None of these countries, for example, has a minimum wage. All right, so that sounds like a pretty good case, right? That these places are just very unlike what somebody like Bernie would advocate. So, not going to take this point by point, because honestly, he's wrong about so many things that it would eat up the entire postgame. I will give a couple of quick examples here. One is the educational vouchers, where he's talking about a program in Sweden that was largely perceived as a disaster. That in fact, other right-wing parties in the region no longer advocate the same thing because of what happened there. And of course, he doesn't make any, he's writing this in a way that suggests that these things exist just all over the place. But like Finland, not only are there no educational vouchers in Finland, there are literally no private schools in Finland. That's not legal there. Right. And they have the best education system in the world. So a lot of this is covered, like a lot of the just the sort of basic fact checking of a lot of the sloppy stuff that Zakaria or whoever's writing this
could be Zakaria. I'm just asking questions.
Sure. Yeah. But a lot of the sort of basic, a lot of the grunt work in correcting just basic things that get wrong here, because Zakaria is lifting it off some, Koch brothers Foundation for the Promotion of Market Values think tank. And if you look at what they say, he didn't even read the whole thing. So a lot of that is covered in an excellent article in Jacobin by Matt Brunig, where he takes, he just takes a lot of this piece by piece and corrects it and talks about why all this is misleading. But I think that just for the sake of what we're doing here with the debunk, focusing on the sort of core bad arguments, want to just take three elements: the thing about billionaires, the thing about the light regulatory burdens, and the thing about the minimum wage. right? So, first of all, it's absolutely true that when Bernie Sanders says billionaires shouldn't exist, he is signposting goals that go beyond what's been achieved in the Nordic countries, right? But I don't think he's ever pretended otherwise, right? Like that there's no conflict between saying that, hey, here are a lot of core programmatic things that have been successfully implemented in other countries, so we should do that too, and also having a larger critique of the system and saying that we actually, it'd be better if we went even beyond these places, that like just because Norway or Finland has certain things we advocate, and that's a useful thing to be able to point to because it shows that it's not crazy or utopian or impossible. That doesn't mean that Finland in 2020 represents the end point of human history.
Right.
Second point, and both of these last ones, you could read more about in the Brunig piece, but second point about the light regulatory burdens. This makes it sound like Finland, Norway, Sweden, like that maybe like labor laws, environmental laws, like the sort of core things that somebody like Sanders cares about when it comes to regulations are lighter, more business friendly. That you can get away with dumping more crap into the rivers,
Right.
Firing people more easily, et cetera. None of that's true, right? The germ of truth in the claim about light regulatory burdens, if you follow his links and go into his sources, is that because these countries have fairly efficient centralized states, rather than the weird federalist hodgepodge that we have in the U.S., it is actually easier in terms of paperwork and stuff to start a business.
Right.
Right?
Right. The one area we should have less regulation on, they do. Good for them. Great.
Right. It has nothing to do with the kind of regulations that somebody like Bernie Sanders advocates.
And in fact, Bernie Sanders actually helped small businesses significantly when he was mayor of Burlington. And exactly.
Right. Similarly, when it comes to minimum wage, hey, they don't even have a minimum wage. Wow, that must have been some like crazy, like libertarian reform that they did, just deciding to just completely abolish the minimum wage, or maybe not. Right? As it turns out, not. The actually business interests in some of these countries advocate for a minimum wage. And because the labor unions are so strong, the unions reject that as a maneuver to that, like, oh, if we had this government minimum, they would justify being able to pay people just that, right? What we should continue is our tradition of sectoral bargaining, whereby these incredibly powerful labor unions negotiate sector by sector wages for entire parts of the economy, and actually the spread between the lowest and highest paid workers is much more egalitarian because of that. And the worst paid workers are paid much more than they are here.
So first part, non sequitur. Next two parts, insanely just sort of comically misleading and mendacious. Before you go.
I was just going to say, though, I think it would really, just because this is actually pretty funny, there's one more thing that's worth highlighting here.
Yes.
So we have this screenshot of the graph of this because this is amazing. Zakaria claims in the article that it's evidence. He says, okay, granted, there was a time when Sweden was implementing this very Bernie Sanders-like program. They were really on the socialist road, but it was an economic disaster. And here, and this time, this was in the 70s and 80s. And here's the evidence he brings up. That from 1970 to 1995, they added net zero jobs to the Swedish economy. Well, let's look at the graph from the screenshot. Do we have that?
Yes.
All right. So if you look at it, important extra information to know. The Socialist Party was in power from about 1970 to about 1990.
That's beautiful. Explain it for people who are listening. That's You should watch this though. That's a graph even I could understand.
This is so from 1970 to 1990, when the left was in power in Sweden, employment went way up steadily. And then from 91 to 95, when the right was in power, it went down to about where it started. Hence, from 1970 to 1995, they added net zero jobs to the Swedish economy.
It's amazing. Did you ever, Napoleon, did you ever have a period of time, and I'll admit I did, I'll embarrass myself, where maybe you were signaling to people that if you had a Fareed Zakaria book, or you pretended to muscle your way through that show, that was, you were a man of the world?
I believe not.
Did you ever have it? You never watched him or read him?
Oh, Fareed Zakaria?
Yeah.
The guy, I mean, I know who he is, but I've never dug into anything.
Yeah.
He was never a reference for me. No. I just thought he was like, what's that called? Affirmative action at CNN at the time or something like that, man. Because I didn't know what he brought to the table.
Yeah. He's one of these figures that it's amazing. Like, him and Thomas Friedman and people like that still have so much power, but it is amazing to watch them. They're propping a world that exists because they represent capital, of course. But the ideological project they're propping is done. I mean, I remember he wrote this book called The Post-American World about the rise of India and China, which I read in 2007 probably because I was doing my thesis on that stuff. And among many other things, I remember him kind of saying that, like, this is the pre-crash, that one of the reasons that America would be able to kind of maneuver this was for all the problems in America, some of which sounded kind of borderline, like, including democracy, was, America had a super innovative financial system. Wow. So, that was going to help us out. The fact that people were buying collateral debt.
It really seems like the function ideologically, somebody like Fareed Zakaria is like, I don't know, you listen to somebody on a college campus say something, about American imperialism, and somebody else gets defensive and patriotic, and then you get to be the smart, sophisticated, worldly guy and lean in and say, actually, China and India, that's really where it's at, coming up. And there's this guy, Modi, I read Fareed Zakaria talk about. Very interesting guy.
I think you just nailed, that's literally what he's there for. Ben Burgis, give them an argument. Logic for the left. Thanks, brother.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. All right. So we got a few pieces of stories to get to, but first, let's play this new collaboration I just sent you, Matt. So how did you start talking with our buddies, the Serfs, man?
Man, I hit them up online. Like I got into contact with Lance, and after I got on your show the first time, so we got on Twitch, and he interviewed me. We talked about music and stuff like that, and we stayed in touch. And he said he had an idea. He's like, I'm gonna talk to you about it later. So I'm like, all right, hit me up whenever. And he just came up with a concept where he was like, he wasn't sure if I wanted to go all the way with it or not. Where he wanted to call it King of the Grifts, and mainly on the Dave Rubins of the worlds and the Ben Shapiros and everybody, in that.
Oh, don't play it. Yeah, we gotta. Oh, sorry.
In that world.
Yeah.
So he had a bunch of instrumentals. I picked one and we put it together. And I didn't even know he wanted to shoot a video for it, but he's like, "Yeah, I want to shoot a video and everything like that." So we just put it together. I sent them my stuff, and they do the Serfs things. You know how they put stuff together. Yes,
they do. They put a lot together. What?
Yeah.
Wait, who? So he did the beat?
Nah, I'm not sure. Like he said, he had a fat.
Better be a Commons beat, Lance.
He had like some files, and he had me pick between certain beats, but I don't think it was he made it actually.
All right, well somehow it got. Well, we'll see in the postgame. All right, let's play. This is King of the Grift by Napoleon Da Legend featuring the Serfs.
In the year 1312, the butter horse will ride in a trance. Right.
Hello, and welcome to the Evening News. I'm Whitey McCreamface.
And I'm Brownie McBeerson.
Tonight, we tackle the question that's been plaguing mankind since the dawn of mankind.
Mirror, mirror, on the wall
Who is the greatest grifter?
of them all.
Serfs, what up? Oligarch dollars. Napoleon.
Dude, I'm telling you, it's Nas.
Look at these dudes changing their views to get views on YouTube with think tanks paying them dues. David, you a grifter, right? David Ike, shapeshifter. From young Turks to the Blaze, grade A flipper. Guess you got emancipated, no A blinking.
I love that you're in Molyneux.
Reactionary stay clicking. You ain't the only
You're in
one that
Molyneux's
cold
head.
rolls incubating. Versus a Murdoch,
awesome.
Weber, Elstow, and KK, Michael and Sam there. But you scared to debate him. Cold feet, peace crowder, we still waiting. How would feel being a hack and a shill? How much it cost? 50, 100 down, half of a mil? It's a crime being alive, black, gay, or trans, or immigrant or poor. It's free market, hands off, or laissez-faire, unless they don't agree with you. Laws of power, coward, don't bite the hand feeding you. Billionaire whisperers, king of the grifters, playing trumpets and hate to
Cool.
manipulate. Listen,
Wow, Jesse even gets his time.
man, is that you? I see you, sis. Billionaire whisperers, king of the grifters, playing trumpets and
All right, so everybody should. I like this. I like this work. So you were able to finally take watching all this garbage and turn it into art.
Right. Thanks to the Serfs for the idea, you know what I mean? I had no idea what they were going to put behind me, but when I saw the finished product, I was like, yo, these guys are funny, man. They're crazy.
Did you ever think that all of this, like, YouTube, I mean, I know, like, generally, obviously, everything influences everything we do, but did you ever picture that you were actually going to do, like, a song where you mocked Dave Rubin and Steve Crowder?
Nah, not at all. Man.
That they would make it on a track?
Nah, not even, man. I never, like I say, when he came with it, I was like, why not, man? You know what I mean? And it was fun to do. It was fun to do. But I like to talk about things that you might not hear, like rappers or MCs, you know, tackle. That's one of the things I said the first time I came here. I think like the spectrum is really small on what people want to talk about or can't talk about. I think I could talk about it and still make it sound dope.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? That's the thing.
Oh,
But
clearly. We just watched that.
you know what I mean? Just still make it sound flavorful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's a lot that's to make that stuff sound flavorful.
Right. The thing is I know there's some people that some hip hop heads that listen to that, they might not even know who the hell I'm talking about. But you know, it's that's what it's about. I used to listen to songs and hear people throw out terms, Malachi Yor or people like that.
Right.
It made me want to look them up and see what the hell was he talking about.
Well, that's what I'm actually curious about, because it sounds ridiculous to even compare those things, but actually not really. Like you would, who is, they locked up Supreme. Who is that?
Right.
It's actually not really that different than who the fuck is Steve Crowder? Who is paying him? I mean, honestly, it's not. It's totally different universes, but it's the same process.
Well, I always
find
parallels. I think everything is connected. Like the grifters are going on in the music industry is the same with the gatekeepers and everything like that. I think it's the same thing going on in every single industry. It's like we talking about politics and people being like inheriting power, for example. Like people do that in the music game too. You're somebody's son, you're somebody's this or that, or somebody's neighborhood, and it's like voices like me. I kind of got to kick in the door to get heard. You know what I mean? Nobody's gonna give it to me. Nobody cares. They're like, who is this guy? Where's he coming from? So I got to, I was never afraid to do something out the box. I think that's what hip hop is. Like you take nothing, and you make something out of it. And that's what I always do with my music, regardless of what it is.
And that's how that airhead turns up in a rhyme.
Exactly. That's what it is.
The ultimate mashup culture. That's the only piece of art that Dave Rubin's ever inspired. You think about it. The man was a stand-up comedian for years.
Right.
He makes us laugh now, but I have to grade it properly. When he was actually trying to do stand-up, he was not funny. And now all of a sudden he produces a great song by Napoleon the Legend.
Well, it's thanks to y'all too, because honestly, I wouldn't know who he was if it wasn't for y'all.
Well, I sort of apologize for that. I love when my mom says like because my mom, you know, she watched most of the show. She's very, I mean, you know,
right.
Definitely a reason that I know about some things and care about things. You know, my mom, very, very politically oriented, very justice oriented woman.
Right.
And then there's that other part where she's like, yeah, I still don't really get who this fucking Dave Rubin guy is and why we're talking about him. She's like, I get, this is my mom, I get he's stupid. And I get he's like an idiot. And I get that he's on YouTube and he says really terrible things and he's really stupid. And it's probably important for your younger viewers, but I'd like to hear more about Brazil.
Right.
And Rubin's an easy one to explain too. Imagine trying to explain Jordan Peterson, especially after all the Russia
Well, she knew about Jordan
stuff.
Peterson because Jordan Peterson went into the, you know, I certainly remember that conversation. Who's this guy? He's crying and he hates women. And he's always talking, and he sounds like some guru from the 80s, except he's a Republican.
For 30 days straight.
Yeah. Who is he? Who is this guy? What the fuck is wrong with people your age?
I mean, I think
you can actually hear how I love you, Mom, but people should know how tough you are, frankly. And someday people have to know, you know, because people have an image. I think they think my mother. This like, all right, she's, you know, Massachusetts, little yoga. Michael cares. Like my mom is from Massapequa. She's not a tough enough lady. What the fuck is wrong with it? They like this guy, and I get it. I know that a lot of like young feminist stuff is really stupid, and boys need mentors or whatever. Everything that's great, but this guy is a fucking crying misogynist, Michael. Why do people watch him? I don't know, Mom. I'm trying to figure it out. Anyways,
I'm defenseless against that kind of female insanity.
Can you believe that this guy said that? Anyways, I mean,
it's important work, man. Because look, if somebody like Jordan Peterson, I saw a few videos floating in my algorithm early, and I was listening to it. I was like, oh, who is this guy? You know, and it kept coming in, but I didn't even dig deep into it. So it's like it's easy once you're presented with certain people to start listening to them if whatever their message is well packaged or whatever.
Yeah,
so
of course.
Some people need to unpack it and tell people like, look, that might sound good to you for a second, but it's maybe dangerous and it's a waste of time. You should listen to other better, more intelligent people that are more genuine.
Yeah.
That have your interest at heart.
Right.
That's why King of the Grifters, that's what it is. It's like I don't think a lot of people think of like somebody talking is like that person might be a grifter, that person might be getting paid for. Like for us, we probably think that way, but I don't think a lot of people do. They take people for face value. They're like, oh, that person's charming. Oh, that person's funny. Like that's what Joe Biden's good at. I'm sure my mom would see him talk and be like, oh, he seems like a nice guy. So sometimes, you know, it's important to call out and to show people, you know, make them see underneath the surface of that.
Absolutely. All right, let's play. Let's actually, you know what? Do we have the Warren thing? Because we're gonna do the bad. Let's go to the bad directly, and then we'll do a few more sounds, take a few Discord questions. We're back Wednesday, folks. Liz Franzik and Adolph Reed. We have and of course we got to play the bad contest with Napoleon. Oh, okay. Yeah, all right. Napoleon, we're gonna play three different. Sorry,
okay, we'll play that before the bad drop.
The bad drop, we're gonna play three different Donald Trump drops. He's talking about one thing, so don't worry. You don't need to pick out three different things he's talking about. The one thing he's talking about is the same thing.
Okay.
Your job is to guess what is he talking about. Now, I know some people. You know, maybe if you've already
By the way,
seen
nobody
this,
has won this game.
Nobody has won this yet. If you've already seen and yeah, including people who like guests who I know watch the show and have missed this segment. They call me about other stuff or whatever. So this is great. Nobody's won this yet. You could be the first person to win. Are you ready?
No pressure. Let's go.
Let's do it.
Here's number one.
Bad deal. Should have never been thought of.
All right, that's number one. Again, this is the same event.
and where it should have stopped is at the deal standpoint, where they thought about it.
And number 3.
And they had the worst cover-up ever.
All right. Now, Napoleon, would you like to listen to those 3 one more time in rapid fire before you make your pick?
one more time.
All right.
Bad deal, should have never been thought of, and where it should have stopped is at the deal standpoint, where they thought about it. And they had the worst cover-up ever.
All right. Napoleon Da Legend, what is Donald Trump talking about there?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind, I think, is the wrong answer. So I'm trying to get outside of my mind and go into the upside down world.
You can say your first answer and have a second one if you want.
Sure. You can. You know what? Nobody's gotten this, so I would say take 2 guesses.
Yeah.
The first. When I say bad deal, I thought he was talking about NAFTA.
All right, so NAFTA is something I believe Matt Christman picked NAFTA. NAFTA is a very respectable pick. It makes a lot of sense. I will just give you a hint that even though she was totally wrong,
right,
that the Malaika Jabali impulse to take this in a very weird direction is a good impulse.
Right.
So it's not an NBA deal that he's criticizing, but she was, I think, getting a little bit, especially if you're Donald Trump, actually. This is very similar to an NBA deal, actually. I don't know if that's a hint, but if you're Donald, yeah, okay, that's not really a hint. But going to let your mind roam free.
Man. Trying to.
What if you had no value on human life? It's actually a very strong hint.
Is it? I mean, all right, man. This is my guess. Is it the oh man.
Do it. Say it. Just go for it.
Is it? Did it got to do with the coronavirus?
No, but not in the ballpark. All right, one more time, and then we will tell you. All right.
Bad deal, should have never been thought of, and where it should have stopped is at the deal standpoint, where they thought about it. And they had the worst cover-up ever.
He is talking about the murder and dismemberment of Jamal Khashoggi, the Saudi journalist.
Oh, I wouldn't have thought of that right there. But I'm not surprised.
And where it should have stopped was at the idea phase, and it was a bad deal. And it was, and this is where he says, you'll notice with the most conviction, worst cover-up ever.
Wow. Wow.
That's where his sincerity comes through. What kind of cover-up was that?
It should have did it better.
They should have did it. That's literally that's what he said. It's like,
and not even a good cover-up.
Yeah, it wasn't even a good cover-up, or else I wouldn't be answering these stupid questions.
You guys
so
don't
dumb.
even know how to kill people right.
Yeah, I don't know. I tried to tell MBS, I said there was a guy named Joseph Bonanno. Great guy. Did security at a great casino that we had, the Taj. They got rid of bodies.
Like
their bodies on the Long Island Expressway that nobody even knows about. But they didn't want to listen to what I had to say.
Call me next time you got to do something like that. Give me the heads up. I got
you have my personal phone number. And he doesn't call me. And I was friends. I knew Gambino captains. We stole money from St. Jude's together.
I mean, it's amazing when you look at history.
All right, one more thing. Let's just get it all out of our systems. Can we share with Napoleon the Donald Trump lightsaber tweet? All right, so you know how Mike Bloomberg, actually, let's be honest, money well spent. He helped thwart Bernie Sanders, but he ran an embarrassing campaign, and obviously a lot of people grifted off of him because who would sincerely care about that campaign unless you completely have your head up your ass? So they did a lot of silly. We got to show the first one.
Oh wow!
All right, so check this out. We might even get a strike for this.
Was a week old.
So basically, some idiot in Bloomberg was just like, haha, like, here's how we'll respond to Donald Trump mocking us. We'll play a clip of Obi-Wan and Darth Vader. Haha, that's great. Here is Donald Trump's response, a quote tweet after Super Thursday. We could just scroll up. Super tweet. Sorry.
I love that movie, man.
Watch this.
That's what, I used to watch Spaceballs all the time, man.
Yeah, it's just holding his head. my God. We deserve that.
The
Bloomberg
Star Wars
deserves that.
thing was
Bloomberg
already
deserves
corny as hell. Who told him that was cool to do, man? It's just like, this guy.
All right, let's go to the bad. I'm trying to get myself a little loosened up here before I get really pissed off. Let's go to the bad.
But it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good. No good, really bad for you, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
Matt, you always explain what the music is that accompanies that.
The mode is from, let's see, what is it? Toad's Turnpike, Mario Castle.
And it's Mario Kart. And the reason it's Mario Kart?
Because Stormy Daniels said Trump's penis looks like Toad from Mario Kart.
That's right. We go deep. All right. So the bad. Do we have our sound of pure, unadulterated narcissism? Okay. Napoleon, I think that the Bernie Bros storyline is an act of pure classism. It's a media manufactured nonsense, and it's actually a tool against the working class. What do you think of the Bernie Bro idea?
Yeah, I mean, it's such it's a smear, you know, against the supporters, make people feel bad for backing Bernie. Like, first of all, like, I mean, my first ever political like event I've been to was the one in the Queens. It's like the most diverse following is behind Bernie, you know, regardless, you know. But they're trying to paint that picture. But what's so effective about what they did, though, is that it's hard to say, to find a counter argument, because it's like a, you know, it's like a conspiracy theory. You can't prove against it. Anybody could be not a genuine person, create a Twitter account and start bashing somebody and claim they're a Bernie bro.
Right.
So there's no ways to prove it or prove against it.
And also they made everything in it. So if somebody actually said something that was literally threatening or racist or misogynist, you don't know whether that's either somebody who has 3 followers or it's a bot. But they also made it that, hey, CNN, don't lie. Hey, WFP, release your vote totals.
Right.
Hey, Elizabeth Warren, why all of a sudden have you flipped on Medicare for all? You know, and that is all the same shit, because what they really mean is we don't ever want to be criticized. We don't ever want to be have any sort of reckoning with our power. Now, again, folks, the reason that Elizabeth Warren's bullshit matters beyond whatever. Look, I'm not happy to take a lap. I wish I was wrong about Elizabeth Warren every day. I wish that somehow this fantasy that 2 people running against each other is actually good for both of them, and this unity, like it's like the end of Cool Runnings and they're going to pull the bobsled together. I wish all that stuff was true. It's not in like the real world, but I'm glad it's a beautiful fantasy, and that they would help each other at the convention and all this bullshit. Elizabeth Warren stabbing Bernie in the back every step of the way, and clearly not, I mean, look, I can't, maybe there's a Hail Mary, maybe, I don't know. You never say never. But obviously, if you had to put money, obviously she's not going to endorse him. And that should be obvious to anybody who has any kind of basic processing ability over the last several months in terms of this situation, unless you have a real deep attachment to an idea that has been formed of her several years ago. But again, what is embodied here in this clip is an ultimate contradiction that is a fundamental threat to our project, because the bridge that we had hoped to build with liberals is going to be, at least I think as represented along class lines, unbridgeable. We have to build out a social base in this country that is actually the long-term work of the disaffected, of the working, of the real people. And it's tremendously hard. And it might be too late for this election. And that's devastating, for being real. But if this is a microcosm of a certain type of extremely narcissistic upper middle class suburban mindset, an overeducated mindset that looks at where we are historically with Donald Trump, with Joe Biden, with climate, with the tens of millions of dollars that real people have given to Bernie Sanders' campaign, with the children in cages. I'll keep doing the list. and this is where your head's at, it's not just that I find it disgusting and embarrassing, which I assure you I do. It's that this shows a fundamental inability to even begin to meet the moment we're in. And that's what's bad.
Particularly, it's a particular problem with Sanders' supporters.
It is. I mean, and it just is. It's just a factual question. And it is. And that's something I think that
Have you ever talked with Senator Sanders about that?
I have.
What was that conversation like?
It was short. But yeah, we've talked about it. But I think it's a real problem.
Does he not share your view that he's responsible for the behavior of his supporters?
You know, I shouldn't speak for him. It's something he should speak for himself on. But I do think it's something.
She'll characterize it as short, but
yeah,
she doesn't want to speak for him.
Did. And by the way, why I would, if I was Bernie Sanders, I would never, or advising him, I would say that there should be multiple other people to record and notate everything was said, because you cannot trust an account of their conversations based off of what she had done in January. So look, let's not even go through all the rest of it. 2 quick points. One, and there's honestly actually multiple pieces of data on this. If you want to look up, Branko Mercic has tweeted some out. A very good reporter. No, it is not demonstrated that supposedly the Sanders campaign does this more. If it is quote unquote done more, it is because there's more real people supporting Bernie Sanders than anybody else. And also because things are getting mixed up. Let's just stipulate a really, really extremely narrow set of activities that are unacceptable, including things that are like actually illegal, like doxing, which people have been throwing around without any evidence is happening. Secondly, things that we should never make, like we should not ban and we have to accept as a disgusting price of free speech. But as an example, people saying that they wish Bernie Sanders died of a heart attack, which I saw multiple people say. Really obscene things. But we deal with, and certainly every single group has done them in their own ways. It's totally morally obscene and just as wretched for a Warren surrogate or supporter to relish the situation right now of hurting Bernie Sanders when that means people will literally die because of lack of health care. That's equally as morally repugnant as anything else that could be said online from the perspective of reality. Then there's like a whole broad set of like people talk shit, people joke, and people send snake emojis. If that is the limit of what you're able to deal with in life, well, good luck to you. If you're incredibly privileged, maybe you construct a life like that for yourself. Most people can't. I'd invite you to watch our illicit history of Jamaica, where we show people when they didn't vote for PNP or Labor Party in different neighborhoods, they didn't get sent snake emojis. They had their buildings burned down and they were shot. Maybe you should get like just a 1-second check-in with life. And the fourth point is the rest of it, which is the overwhelming huge bulk of quote unquote Bernie activity, which is wrong. Sorry, you lied about that. We're going to correct the record. Nope, you're lying about single payer. Or actually, yeah, maybe if you compare a major Jewish presidential candidate to the coronavirus, maybe we'll check you on that. And even if I was to stipulate, because Elizabeth Warren put out that embarrassing, ridiculous, and I think ultimately quite dangerous plan about fake news a couple months ago. Even if you were to say this is somebody, she doesn't have a structural critique of these platforms and things like that. I'm not talking about an anti-monopoly critique. I'm talking bigger. And she really just, she's one of these like fact people and that's going to set us free. Okay, whatever. Sure. Put forward some legislation. I'll fight against it because I think it's dangerous. But that being said, there is nobody on earth who could look at anything we're dealing with a modicum of seriousness and take a primetime television exit interview for a campaign that has already received way more media coverage than any of its vote totals have ever earned and spend it talking about that. It's insulting. It's insulting to poor people. It's insulting to people who work. It's insulting to island nations. It's insulting. And that's it. Very much that's it. Like if you even have like 1% of like, well, I think, I'm not open to hearing it. You guys have anything to add?
I mean, if she cares about, I want does she care about people? Do you even care about people? Like, it's not a graceful way to, like you say, to exit. She didn't need to add on to that. So that's why, to me, it's like, what are you trying to accomplish here? What are you really trying to accomplish? And it's like, it's funny when they talk about the Bernie bros and stuff. When you're in the spectrum of, like, let's say a personality type where they're on this side is people that are like pull yourself up by the bootstrap types, you know what I mean? And on this side where it's like it's mostly about solidarity, it's like all we want is what we want for ourselves is we want for everybody. Like universal programs. We're talking about healthcare. If you're sick, I want you to get the same care as I do. And I mean, if that's not compassionate, I don't know what it is. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, you don't gotta. We don't have to be polite. We want these things. You know what I'm saying? It's like this is a day and time. The stakes are high. We have this one chance to make things happen right now. It's not a game. It's not a joke. People are dying. I know people that have cancer that need this, that really need this. It's not like, it's not a game. It's not, oh, my feelings were hurt and this and that. Like, we expect more from our politicians. We expect more from these people who get so much light, who have so much power. Their words weigh so heavy.
And by the way, especially a politician, because again, I'm at the, look, most of these folks are just careerists. And I think, frankly, Elizabeth Warren is obviously just a careerist. I get that she did some good work on a couple of issues. That's great. I don't know if
that's sometimes good for your career.
That's, yeah, incidentally, the reason, like, we are not going to have a college professor, even an Ivy League one, who has no political experience and didn't even apparently form her adult political beliefs until she was in her 50s, does not become a United States senator without breakthrough celebrity making work, which is what her bankruptcy work is. Okay? And that's fine. That's great. That's awesome. But enough. Like, it's a fantasy. And the bottom line, what you see is you see someone who's worth several $1 million and a huge amount of incredibly comfortable enablers sitting around and indulging this while you say people have cancer. People are dealing with real shit. And my problem with the left is I can actually deal with that because that doesn't surprise me at all. There's really three obvious things. If Elizabeth Warren was really serious about it, she would have taken the risk of running against Hillary Clinton and all that entailed. If she was really serious about it again, she would have endorsed Bernie. If she was really serious about it again, she wouldn't have run this time. And if she was really serious about it again, she would have dropped out by Super Tuesday. If she was really serious about it again, she would have not, I know she criticized Joe Biden. She systemically attacked Bernie Sanders. And the whole purpose and the whole function of her campaign was clouding and diluting Bernie Sanders' ascendance and taking energy away and endorsements and resources for a bunch of other people playing these games. That's reality. And that's fine. People have a right to be careerists. People have a right to be ambitious. That most people in politics are, and that's fine. But we cannot afford to be in a fantasy life about somebody. And certainly we cannot be using, silly, embarrassing, therapeutic woke language to let somebody, you know what, even again, this was amazing is when you're dealing with a certain type of narcissistic personality, you keep bending over backwards. So it's like, all right, you know what? You're not going to endorse, you're not going to be constructive. How about, could we negotiate on not doing a toxic interview where you complain about Twitter like the week before Michigan? Like, there's just all these steps. But when you're dealing with somebody who's fundamentally just in their own head and a culture that's in their own head, that's all it is. And, I guess read this tweet, Matt, because I think that kind of sums it up, at least for me.
Bronze Hammer here. I sure hope Elizabeth Warren stops feeling so sad soon. Kind of getting worried she's going to be too sad to say if all her beliefs were fake or not.
Here's the thing. It was my turn to be president, and Bernie's a Jew. And, on one hand, you have Joe Biden who did all the work that supposedly my whole career is about. And then on the other hand, Bernie Sanders didn't get his goddamn carcass out of the way so I could be president.
And guess what? The whole Bernie Bros thing is just her second step, because originally she wanted to say Bernie was unsupportive of women, right? And then even Hillary had to apologize for that stuff because of saying nobody likes Bernie. So they couldn't actually go at Bernie. Even in like this, I closed it, but that Nation article, like the third paragraph is like, Bernie Sanders has never done any of this, and he distances himself and like hates it, obviously, right? Like, Yeah.
Right. It's all a bunch of fucking. It's grotesque. That's the thing. It's like you're watching like a horror movie where the people who are like doing the most obscene things to the whole world think they're like, well, I'm perfectly justified.
All of these people, for the most part, especially like these people in DC, like all these people who has represented the left, right, the Democratic Party, the people who are staffing the Warren campaign.
Right.
Richard Wolff talks about this. Is something I've experienced in my life when I was in school, watching people make decisions. You make a choice sometime in your career. Sometimes you make it early, sometimes you make it later. If you're getting into public policy, if you're getting into politics, if you're on the left side of the spectrum, that you start standing up for working class people, you start pushing back against the status quo, because the status quo has been killing people since the founding of this country, right? You either take that brave stance and say, I'm going to fight against this, I'm going to try to change it, or you do what all these other people who have been in power in the Democratic Party and most of these snappers have done. They ignore it. And they do that for two reasons, right? One, because they actually don't agree. They don't think that the status quo is killing people and is a problem, right? And that's just a level of kind of cynicism and like stupidity, right? But we can deal with that. But there's a second group that's really dangerous. And that second group are people who know, right, that the United States, our economic system is predicated on keeping people poor. It's predicated on U.S. military and imperialism. It's predicated on a nasty, horrific criminal justice system, right? They know that, but they say to themselves, if I want to get into power, I have to ignore that. And those people really, really resent the left movement that has come about in the past few years, because we actually were able to hold our convictions and tell the truth, while they spent their whole life lying and denying that part of themselves. So when they see it, I mean, it brings up a trauma for them, but it's like a self-inflicted trauma.
And that is actually part of what is, again, mostly this matters as an extension of different class interests, but part of the reason, it's funny looking at how little respect Warren and her campaign have specifically for Sanders. And if I had to guess, it's all, he doesn't have advanced degrees. He was a hippie.
It's like Chris Matthews talking about the protesters that he used to walk past all the time.
It's all he doesn't have the right credentials. That half of the contempt for him is substantive because of the agenda he represents, or 2/3. But there is a quarter of it that is purely just the rage. He lived in Vermont. He was a carpenter. He doesn't have, and what's incredible is that when you realize, because I genuinely was wondering for a while, when Warren was totally bottoming out, and her surrogates would still say, we're building a broad, literally just mimic language of Sanders, except it wasn't happening at all. I was like, well, I guess they're just faking it until they make it, or maybe they're crazy. I don't know what's going on. And then I realized, there is such an arrogance relative to him that they can't even see what's happening in front of their face, because, I don't know, he's not the right person to do it. There is a really very interesting professionalized dynamic there.
He doesn't have the certificate.
Yeah, no, seriously, he doesn't have the certificate. Right. I have a movement building certificate from Harvard.
Yeah. It's all the entire Warren campaign now is the "I was told by AppleCare" lady.
I was told by AppleCare that I would be president. Again, just back to history. Gandhi. It's what is the Mahatma doing? Are we going to march? Oh, we got a telegram from him. It says, I'm in my own space because that last meeting was totally not okay, making me rethink things. Colonialism bad, but the toxic behavior of the movement makes me rethink the British Empire maybe. Anyway, I don't really have the emotional stamina to deal with this. Sign the Mahatma.
Right. I need some space right now.
Yeah. This is I, Nelson Mandela, from Robben Island. I'm going to need a great deal of space right now. The way Steve Biko spoke about me at the meeting, I don't know if we can do rebel operations in Mozambique until I have 10 months of self-care. By the way, P.T. Botha has invited me to sit on an oversight board. And if the violent rhetoric of the ANC towards me in that meeting is of any consequence, maybe we should have an apartheid regime.
I don't owe you nothing.
I don't owe you anything. It's also like great again. I love that. That's even better. He spent 27 years in prison and didn't come out and go, fuck all you people. I love it. It's like the people who actually could say that were like, I had to build friendships with my prisoners and negotiate with the people who murdered my comrades. And now I will be president of a rainbow nation. And there's like, meanwhile, back in America, those tweets mean you don't get health care.
That's a fundamental difference in character. That's just character, straight up.
It's like, and even, I'm sorry to say, I know it will trigger people, not in this audience, but in people watching. Even Bernie. But Elizabeth Warren's whole campaign is a record campaign on him, and we all know that. And even like behind, guys, I'm telling you, like behind plays. And by the way, this is not a critique on Warren. It's just a critique on Bernie. His campaign is soft as hell. They didn't call up reporters and pitch negative stories about Warren and say, actually, she was a corporate lawyer. You're supposed to do all that. I know the people, and we're in like fantasy unity land. That's called running a campaign. Warren was doing that from the beginning. The stuff that people got all pissed off about in the last couple of weeks when she finally said that Bernie was ineffective, they had been doing that shit for the whole fucking campaign because they were running against him. That's how it works. And we all know that even if she was able to sink him, that Bernie would endorse Elizabeth Warren in 30 seconds. Right. You could not picture Bernie Sanders sitting on MSNBC being like, I don't know, I thought the tweets were racist. I have to go do self-care in Burlington. You know, and like, let alone, you know, like, it's like Ben Cohen writes a column for the New York Times. Like, this was at the core of the Jewish psyche. So I don't know what we could do. This would never happen. So it's just, and the excuses for why it's happening are usually always actually profoundly sexist and paternalistic. Like a fucking United States Senator, Ivy League professor. It's like, oh, porcelain. Campaigned in Massachusetts. It's like, honestly like an insult to women. Like objectively. Anyways, whatever. People are fucking pathetic. I don't owe you anything. I, Nelson Mandela, need self-care. Wait, what's the other one? It's like he gets like, thank you for the communication, Governor Becky. Thanks so much for reaching out. I'm really not in a space to deal with planning guerrilla operations against the apartheid regime. Right, I'm gonna read this one.
I'm gonna go to Dubai for a week just to, hop in a jacuzzi and just decompress. I'll get right back to you, man.
That sounds way more honorable. That's so much more honorable.
Read this one in Nelson Mandela.
Okay, this is Amber Tamlin. Nelson Mandela, by the way, is no longer right wing. He is now a Warrenite. Yeah. To the people who fought for Elizabeth Warren, and most especially women and young girls out there, a reminder, you owe no one anything right now. And I'm going to put in parentheses, step over homeless people on the street. People who are dying because they can't have insulin shots can kiss your ass. Yeah. People overseas who are victims of military coups and cluster bombs can just sit down. End my riff. And now back to this actually insane narcissistic tweet. Allow yourself space to grieve. Be angry and be numb. Take time. Take all the time you need because there's certainly no time-pressing issues that we are dealing with. There's not like major timelines that we are facing. Now, that being said, if I am some type of, I don't even know, but I'm assuming some type of like millionaire sketch comedian from some time, I guess there is a lot of time. If the extent of my worries is scraping a Prius in Silver Lake, or justifying to myself, hiring illegal immigrants that I underpay while still wanting to pretend that I'm a great advocate of workers, I guess there is a lot of time. The second thing was a joke. I don't know if Amber Tamlin does that, but I would be profoundly unsurprised. All right, we really have to do this. We're just doing a tour of just like this grotesque behavior of these people right now.
Let's do one more.
Okay, all right. This is Charlotte Clymer. Let's get this right out of the way now. Elizabeth Warren and her team won't hold the either remaining team campaign a damn thing. They put out an extraordinary comprehensive platform, brilliantly articulated a deep vision, and took out Bloomberg. They deserve space in their time.
You're on their time.
You're on their time. I like that.
I'm on Elizabeth Warren's time.
Yeah, it was like it's like some kid like drowning in the Maldives. It's just like, please, can we have help? It's like, you're on Elizabeth Warren's time. It's like, hey, I just worked my third shift at an Amazon warehouse before I go drive Lyft, and I can't afford my kid's inhaler. Excuse me, could you stop being so violent with your speech?
I'm numb right now. I'm feeling numb.
I'm feeling numb. It's like, Comrade Mandela, we must move now, or the apartheid forces will amass themselves. I am not on your time.
You are trying to command our vote, and you will only lose your more support.
You will only lose your more support. A lot of people were very rude to me, and now there's going to be a very long apartheid ahead.
I don't know who needs to hear this.
I don't know.
But Warren doesn't know, Bernie, a goddamn thing.
I don't know who in the African National Congress needs to hear this, but I don't owe you a goddamn thing to end apartheid. Now, I am going to eat chocolates.
Not a good look, guys.
Not a good look. Wow, so I'm supposed to come out and help lead to an equal democracy in our country. Yikes. Looks like somebody is monopolizing my lived experience. Yep, if you run a political campaign and you, as an example, profited off of the currency of a disabled single-payer advocate who is staking literally his personal life on getting that accomplished and has flipped to Sanders, yeah, you kind of owe him something. I don't know, like if Elizabeth Warren and her husband, get a divorce or something, I am going to just put out that she does not owe us anything and she should take time for self-care. For a presidential election determining the fate of the globe and a major player in it, yeah, she owes people something.
She owes everybody who was actually supportive of Medicare for all or abolish ICE, which she was actually an abolish ICE person way back when.
For that 3 months in. That was actually what I love is that it's so clear when you look at her campaign that she just had millennial woke people just writing bullshit she didn't even care about, and she was just like, and that's why we're gonna say go girl because blah blah blah. And then the ICE one was, I could be totally wrong, but the ICE one was really funny because she was totally an abolish ICE, and then she was at a forum and it was almost like it hit on her what the fuck are these people? She's like, no, we don't. What? There's drug dealers. Fuck that noise. You better go write some tweet about how I thought Moonlight was an incredible movie or something, but we need ICE. Stop fucking around. Why is that old Shylock still ahead of me? Daddy called him Shylocks. So how do you guys think, if we take as a premise, which I think is very good, that Joe Rogan really is a bellwether of a lot of normal middle America, especially in the iteration of younger and in this case obviously male, and I think in some ways that's, as I always say, in some ways that's actually really great and really cause for optimism. In other ways it sucks when he facilitates various people. But it's really, honestly, I'm not going to keep giving that disclaimer because we're at a point where it's honestly it's an is where it is. It's an is what it is thing now. We're not even at that point anymore, right? It is what it is. And there's actually a lot to work with. And I just want to say, this is Joe Rogan responding to, because the Democratic establishment can cry bully and gaslight you all day about the fact that Joe Biden is unable to do this physically and mentally, but then it's going to go into a general election. And I know the Democratic elites don't care about it because all they care about is beating Sanders. 4 more years of Trump is great for them. Bonanza fundraising. But you care about beating Trump because you know how horrifying this all is. Check out how this resonates with a Bernie Sanders supporter, person who's not going to be obscured by a whole bunch of bullshit and propaganda. Smart guy who can see what is right in front of his face and represents a lot of voters.
Can't remember the word creator, refers to God as the thing. Hey, actually, I like that more. That's funny.
You know what I think? I have a different take on it. Let's play it because I have a different take on it because when I listened to it, I said, "Oh, I know what he's doing."
Which one do you think it is? His first, or
the bottom one, the second one. He doesn't want to. Here, let's
We
play.
hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by go. You know the thing.
Stop. Pause. You can't be president.
What?
Stop. Pause. Any games here?
Joe Rogan's powerful.
Joe Rogan's powerful. Stop. Pause. He shut down all of Twitter.
Pause. Listen, we can't play any games here, folks. This is a really old man who can't talk. Like, this is not a joke. Like that right now. You know the thing? Play that again. Play that again. This should get you into a mental hospital.
Right.
They
Pause.
should be like, hey.
Let's just be really clear. Because people will do, because I'm noticing again, as you'd expect, that people like Joe Lockhart are weaponizing, woke shit. This is not about ageism or ableism or any bullshit. And by the way, this is also what drives normal people insane. This is not saying, in fact, part of the reason that we actually eased up on this was out of human compassion. It was actually saying it is really sad and unpleasant to watch somebody, even somebody that I think has a terrible political career, diminish. And I'll make some jokes about it because I'll make jokes about anything. But actually, this is very sad. It's very uncomfortable. But it is what it is. And if you go out and you try to lie to normal people and use a whole bunch of bullshit fucking rhetoric about what's right in front of their face, it's going to be doubly insulting. Because everybody's just going to say, if they have to watch this guy for a little bit, oh, clearly, like, I hope he's safe. I hope he has a nice time. He should spend time with his family. He should whatever. He's not equipped to run or be president. That's obvious. And if you're denying that, you're full of shit.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to see it.
This isn't FDR in a wheelchair that you can hide in the 1930s. Like, what's going on here is obvious mental decline. This guy can't function. Here's some more.
This should get you into a mental hospital.
Right.
They should be like, hey, Joe, are you all right?
Right.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by go. You know the
He
thing.
had 3 strokes while he was saying that. The first one, what was that word? Self-evident? Is that what
We
he said?
hold these truths to be self-evident.
But it didn't even sound right. Hear it again.
All right, pause
Listen
and
to
look. We're going to clip this. Send this to everybody you know in your family. And don't send them all the stuff that's worthy. Okay? There's a million reasons to not like Joe Biden. We know all of them. But right now, they're most concerned about electability. And this ain't going to get elected. So send it to them. Send it to them.
Self-evident? Is that what he said?
We hold these truths to be self-evident.
But it didn't even sound right. Hear it again. Listen to it.
We hold these truths to be self-evident.
Self-evident.
All men and women created.
Self-evident.
He's drunk. That dude's either drunk or he can't talk.
We hold these truths to be self-evident.
And he's not drunk. He doesn't drink. All right.
We got another one we should tack
Yeah,
on
all
to
right.
this today. The Trump War Room is on this one. I mean, actually a good source for Joe Biden is senile content.
Yeah, because by the way, you're not going to, that's another thing that's amazing is like, just like.
Do they know that it's problematic to be doing this?
Yeah, do they know that you should probably tell them that it's actually really, really problematic that you're doing this and it's totally inappropriate.
Turn this primary from a campaign that's about negative attacks into one about what we're for, because we cannot get reelected. We cannot win this reelection. Excuse me. We can only reelect Donald Trump.
Wow.
And turn.
See, this
I didn't see that one.
and again, as a normal human being with empathy, these are the great polls here. If you're some absolute asshole, you think this is, whatever, you're Trump, it's funny. If you're off in like disingenuous woke fantasy land, don't notice what's happening right in front of your face. And if you're everybody else, you're caught in between. This is actually fucking devastating and sad to see. And this person cannot do this. Can't do it.
I feel bad when I see that. Like, even in the debates,
Yes.
every time he goes, I really honestly feel bad for
Me
him
too.
because I'm just like, man, why you're trying, but it's just not coming. It's just not there. And it's like, hey man, it's gonna be a liability, man. They try to hide him, but they can't hide him forever. Like, it's about to
You
be
cannot
on Front
hide
Street.
in a national campaign. And by the way, to the extent he can hide, how did that work? Yeah, Hillary Clinton would disappear for weeks at a time. Now, in her case, not because she was hiding anything. She's just, raising money and partying.
And she's unpopular anyway.
Yeah, and everybody hates her, so maybe it would be better to not be out there. But, like, it's impossible. It's impossible. They have amassed everything they have to kill you having health care, to hand the primary to this.
There's a desire for, or a need, or a lust for continuity of power in the Democratic Party that I think is covering up some very dark things.
Indeed. All right, let's play a few more pieces. Actually, Matt, can you check the Discord maybe, or do a few questions, and then we'll do a few more pieces of sound before we head.
Okay, here's from Dave from Jamaica. I know Bernie can't attack Biden directly on his mental decline, but it would be funny if Bernie brought up on stage 2 pictures and asked Joe in the debate which one is Obama. Then then say neither one is a picture. Then say neither one is a picture of Tim Scott and a black and white picture of a man from southern Italy. Not really a question, but nice comment, Dave.
Dave, I like how Dave's thinking.
Joe, which one of these is Barack?
Honestly, look, the one problem that Bernie and the culture of the left has, for those clips, we won't even play them, but those clips of the woman who worked with Elizabeth Warren, the other college professor, saying, I don't trust her, and she's this, she's that. I'm sorry, Bernie's campaign should have had that out in 1 week. And all of us in left media should have been like, thank you. Not like, oh, don't attack each other. Don't attack. It's unity. And then with Biden, Jesus, man. He should have just been, he does. A little slow in the uptake there, Joe. Joe, now I'm going to tip over this water. Let's see how fast you get to it. All right, any other from Discord?
We got one from a Congressional Baseball fan.
We'll do this story on Wednesday.
What would you say to the closing question at the next debate being, now for the final question, please draw a clock? Now, do you guys know what that means? So apparently...
No, but it sounds horrible.
Well, it is kind of horrible. We'll go to this. It is a Congressional Baseball fan. How to draw a clock is apparently a test for dementia.
Oh, snap. For real?
So yeah, maybe we should have Joe.
Thank you, Democratic Party.
Yeah,
it's just kind of like, I'm just so concerned about student debt. But what I love is like in my head, the Democratic Party amassing has like one wing of like genuine little like kind of sub-rate worms and sociopaths who are like, that agenda doesn't work, and then behind that, Bill Clinton's being like, I'm not sure that all this island stuff's going to stay as private as we want if he's elected. So if we could kick into gear a little bit, I would appreciate that. Hillary Clinton's like, we've got bodies.
The one way
and you're going to let this old kite get president? No.
The one irrefutable evidence that the Epstein stuff is true is that neither the Clintons or Trump used it in 2016.
Armistice.
Right.
All right, Donald, you're going to call me a stupid broad. I'm going to go hang out with Bono, and neither of us are going to talk about my good friend Ghislaine Maxwell. She's so creative. Very smart, resilient businesswoman.
My thing when it comes to Biden, like, do they? It's like there's the vote vote blue no matter who people, right?
Yes.
So they either of them would get most of these people, but it seems like Biden people mostly might vote for Sanders, but a lot of the Sanders people, are they not worried that like this is an organic movement? The rallies are popping. The energy is there.
They have no
doesn't that enter
respect
into the equation that like some people are just not gonna cross over to you?
They have no. And
you should acknowledge them in some type of way.
Dude, they have no respect for it. The thing, and this is like a real question, because look, I'll just say this up front. I'm not going to tell people to go, if Biden's the nominee, I'm not going to say like go vote for third party or whatever. Although I will tell you, especially after all the narcissism that has been indulged in the Warren camp, I am not going to be. I thought when we were going after, Jill Stein voters in 2016 and 17, I thought that was about the principle of putting self-expression over material outcomes as a granite principle. And so same logic applies to everybody, or it doesn't. So I'm not, I don't know what my position will be. I will never advocate, obviously, that anybody vote in such a way that helps Donald Trump, of course. But larger strategic and tactical questions has to come to mind of like, in 2016, we made this incredible effort and we came up short, and we could say, you know what? There's a whole future here. The way this has come together, I don't know there's a future there. And when you have people who are, Biden is up, one of the most coherent things Biden said in the last couple of weeks, he was pretty sharp when he said it. Single payer isn't going to happen. Well, single payer is a question of life and death. And I am not like, I accept harm minimization. And I also think we need to have a much bigger conversation. Like that whole, and it's not that I'm actually reversing myself, to be honest. I'm happy to tell people when I'm reversing myself or I think I've made a mistake. I'm telling you that as Marxists even, we look at different historical moments. And 2016 was a very different set of conditions. What we have just seen just now answers a lot of questions, and not in a way that is good for us. So it opens a whole new set. And I don't know what the answer is. We'll be exploring that. But they have no respect. None. Joe Biden will not nominate someone as his VP who respects this agenda and has a program for working people. He won't.
But I'm going to take it further than that. But put respect out the table. We're talking about winning the actual election.
I don't think they care about that.
It's like,
I don't think they care.
That doesn't enter the equation.
I think that the main thing is to stop Sanders. And the worst case scenario, I'm not saying they don't want to win, but I'm saying the worst case scenario, look, you're sitting at the board of CAP, you're in Congress, and this is another reason why we need to be much more careful how we talk about these authoritarian and fascism scenarios. This is another critique I've started to understand. America, first of all, as you know, has always been much more authoritarian, period, full stop, across the board. We've had paramilitarization of entire tens of millions of people of color. We have a prison industrial complex. We have a Patriot Act. We have all sorts of we have a private Silicon Valley stalker economy. Now, has Trump escalated it? No question whatsoever. Is the Republican Party an authoritarian party? No question whatsoever. Anybody who minimize that, don't trust. However, no, you know what? If Donald Trump I don't think in the next 3 years we're going to have martial law and posters of Donald Trump. I think that if he is reelected president, we will lock the courts, which are already, actually, let's be honest, they're already locked. They're already locked. That was another material
Judicial
difference.
reform is going to have to be a huge part
either
of
you have judicial reform or not. That's another material difference with 2016. And you are going to expand this horrifying, authoritarian, evil, eugenicist, xenophobic war on migrants and refugees. I don't believe for a second, by the way, I think Biden would not accelerate it, but I don't think you'd see any real, I think 2 years into a Biden administration, the children that have been kidnapped will be like Guantanamo under Obama. And I say that with no pleasure. That's just genuinely what I think. I don't even know if we'll clip that because I don't want to put that out a lot necessarily. That's what I think. So what really happens is that all these grotesque things happen, but no, if you're some mid-rank fucking DC whatever, or you're on MSNBC and you say Donald Trump is a Russian poopy pants, no, you're not going to jail. You're not getting abducted. You're not getting thrown somewhere. So what's the next 4 years going to be like for you? Well, you can blame Bernie bros because, of course, it's somehow, obviously it's their fault that Biden, was senile. And then besides that, what do? Oh my God, can you believe what Donald Trump just did? What he just said? Oh, give us money. We'll raise money. We'll raise money. We'll raise money. We'll be on TV. We'll raise money. They don't fucking care. It's disgusting. It's honestly, man, it's I try to get into a more upbeat place before we wrap up, but that's just fucking disgusting. And that's how I see it.
Yeah. I mean, but that's why it's make or break, because it's like they're going to demoralize people. Potentially, that could be what's gonna happen. I don't like saying that either. You understand what I'm saying? But it's just that it's like they're willing to stop at nothing to hijack. Like look at the momentum that Sanders was having, and like just like that, it like so quick, they flipped that whole narrative. You know what I'm saying? They took that South Carolina and then the endorsement, and then it got flipped so fast. It's almost. It almost looked impossible to me, like that would flip so fast. But like I said, you know, we're still here.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And it's crunch time. Nobody said it was gonna be easy.
That's right.
And we got to make it happen.
And in the long term, we don't have the luxury of cynicism. I mean, that's like the other thing. It's like, what do we? We're gonna do. Right. We're gonna. Everybody needs to keep doing their part. We're gonna, you know, whatever the scenario, we do this show like we do because it matters. It plays its own little. It's a little water drop. Everybody has to do it. There isn't really. I mean, that's the other very weird thing about this time is there isn't like. There really is not like. Growing up in the 90s, you had the sense that even though you knew that things were really fucked up, which they were, that there was enough insulation that if you were, let's just be blunt, you know, people who were white or middle class or had some economic insulation across the racial spectrum, wherever, like, there was some sense of like, well, you know, that sucks, but I can have a fun business or I can go to the mountains, whatever, you know, take your pick. We're not there anymore. I mean, this is a global dynamic. We are in a neo-authoritarian era of rapidly depreciating resources, and our so-called, you know, center-left parties and centrist institutions are even more anti-democratic in many respects than the right-wing ones, and they are also fundamentally enemies of working people. And the crisis is here. So we all got to keep doing what we do, regardless of the scenario. All right, let's play a few more things. What's this one, Matt?
Bernie up in Flint talking about what his reaction here is pretty good.
Am I correct in remembering, and I may be wrong on this, but not only have you had a water crisis in terms of poison in your water, but you're also paying outrageously high water rates. Is that the case?
Yes, and they could even double again this year.
Vote for this man. I mean, look, this is the only. I'm sorry, this is the only thing that we've got that is, and we shouldn't be ashamed of it. This is actually great. We are blessed to have actually a very good political leader who actually cares about human beings and has a comprehensive program. That should have been seen from the beginning as a once in a lifetime opportunity. And I'm not going to say that you stop. But I really wish people would really reflect when people were doing a whole like, well, I'm shopping around. We'll see what, you know, like people bitched at us for being really clear about this from the beginning. And because it is clear, like, I'm sorry. I know we're in that consumer age. What does Yang say? Oh, Warren has those videos where she yells at the CEOs and that's great. And Tulsi's the real anti-war one. No. If you're remotely serious
By the way, drop out endorse Bernie.
Yeah, this was all clear from day one. It was clear. Clear as day. And it was going to take a Herculean effort to do it. Now, there are these Pod Save America guys. You ever listen to that show?
Never.
Yes.
I heard about it, but never.
Yeah. They're just like Obama staffers. I really did listen to a couple years ago. They really honestly were just like, yeah. And I remember what like Barack Obama went to Mitch McConnell and he was just like, dude, like we're both like, haven't you even like watched The West Wing? And I don't think Mitch McConnell did, man. They're very, I mean, just pure middle brain, like just utter 5 out of 10 always. And they, you know, they floated. They were. I remember. I think these are part of the brain trust of the Beto should run for president. I think is one of their productions. I think they might have even floated that Elizabeth Warren should take a DNA test. So there's a lot of really deep thinking coming out of this little incubator here, and they really in the last several weeks have been just complaining and whining incessantly about Bernie supporters.
They need to find Chapo's manager.
Yes, they're very upset with Chapo. And just in general. And I think now, you know, they're doing the same like corporate, you know, okay, the poors know their place victory lap in the last week. A couple of weeks ago, it was more just like, you guys have to be nice to us. You have to be. And we just wanted to play, as Jacob on Twitter points out, something that, what is this, John Lovett? This is something John Lovett said that is infinitely more offensive, and I know that's amazing because, I mean, these Chapo guys use snake emojis, so I know it's mind-blowing that something could be more offensive than that. But
things they say about individual politicians.
I know. So, I mean, what could be worse than that?
one of the things that's very hard in this situation is that this is one of those rare times where Trump isn't getting everything totally wrong. This is a situation where just because Donald Trump has an ideological interest in proving something in Venezuela, and just because he has shown such deference to dictators around the world and has such authoritarian tendencies at home, doesn't mean that there aren't places where we align on trying to remove Maduro. It's just that we might have a slightly different approach.
Yeah, a slightly different approach. That's always the key line. What we would do is we would use more intersectional language while we waged the coup in Latin America. And incidentally, Obama did try, and they failed. And also, I resent when people are so themselves like that. It's like, it's like, dude, you don't even work in the national security system anymore. Could you at least pretend to respect Latin America on a podcast for performance sake?
They don't even know they need to do that performance yet.
They don't even know they need to do that performance yet. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So I'm going to actually agree with the tweeter here that is more offensive than any joke I've seen about Elizabeth Warren.
Then the fact that like you make a joke referencing the fact that she literally is in a Harvard like sort of document about being called a woman of color. Like, sorry, people make jokes about that.
Yeah,
stuff,
I'm sorry
but guess
people
what?
make jokes about things that happened. And incidentally, like another thing that people need to just grow the fuck up about if you want to ever win, is that was another classic example. We're going to see this right now with the dementia thing or whatever it is that's going on with Joe Biden. When it was like, I remember saying to people in the beginning, and I was so diplomatic about it. I was like, all right, you know what? Fine. Let's just take off. Even though, by the way, what I love is that for any people, this is not my kind of politics. I'm not into that, right? Like, people make mistakes, whatever. But people who take that, like the people who legit took this stuff seriously, like there were writers of Native American descent who were like, that's not okay.
Oh, yeah.
And if people
Rebecca Nagle.
Yeah. And if people were going to, and again, I'm being super blunt. It's not my politics, right? So that's not if she said that, I would 100% respect it, and I might even amplify it. But if Elizabeth Warren was the only choice, I'd go like I'm being transparent. But folks who use nothing but that discourse, and that's their be-all, end-all of everything, all of a sudden I don't know what to tell you. Native American women are telling you that that's not cool. Makes no difference to them. So, so none. Right. None. And then I would just say tactically, like, you know what, whatever. She made a mistake. She lied. She didn't. I don't care. Give her give her the bend over backwards one that people in media do, or give her the most critical one that people who know about the situation do. I don't care. Let's just set all that aside. Again, you can cry bully Democrats into not making that an issue. And then, Elizabeth Warren wasn't going to be the nominee, but then we just spin into the summer, and then what happens? Hey, Pocahontas. Oh, I'm being problematic. I guess I should take an emotional intelligence training course before we campaign.
Oh, the matriarchs told you you're a woman of color? Oh, sorry.
Oh, wow. I guess I can't do the Pocahontas riff anymore because apparently the matriarchs acknowledged it.
Apparently the matriarchs in your family that you're very, very like guarding from reporters.
Yeah.
Don't tell anybody who one of these matriarchs is. I'm sure exists.
She literally did many people are saying.
The Boston Globe article that's exculpates her from apparently this stuff.
Yeah, very
literally has a paragraph towards the end that says, like, asked why she did start identifying as a Native American woman, she says the matriarchs in her family were dying and losing, like, becoming concerned that the culture was being lost. There's no way that would withstand scrutiny. But just like the conversation she had with Bernie, she sets up a veil where you're not allowed to question that.
Exactly. And Mr. Sanders, why did you claim to be of Nigerian descent for decades? It's like, because some of my ancestors were concerned that we were losing it. No further questions.
My distant cousin was on his last leg.
Yeah, exactly.
Had to keep the name going.
Yeah, it meant a lot to them to have the first Nigerian mayor of Burlington.
As the sisters became the matriarchs, they began to talk more about their background and about their mother's background.
Fuck you.
That's the world. This is what we're living in right now.
Oh, my God. Man. Yeah. Well, with that being said, she doesn't owe you a goddamn thing. You go, girl. The matriarchs were figments of your imagination. That's, you know what? Who says that you don't get to have a lived experience of making up fake family members?
Oh, the sisters become matriarchs, aren't they?
The sisters have become the matriarch. The sister has become the matriarch. The great grandpa who killed Native Americans and took their land has become the Native American.
That's deep, man.
She's a liar.
She is a liar. She is a liar. This is, at least the guy who wrote The Education of Little Tree was trying to make up for something. You guys know that story? That's a kid's book. I have to double check this. My understanding of the story is, and it's super traumatizing. I used to read it as a kid. It's a kid who gets basically kidnapped from his grandparents to go to some type of missionary school. He's Native American. And he lives, and it's very idealized. Like his grandparent, he lives like this perfect idealistic existence, and then and the part that I'm sure is, accurate, is he goes and gets tortured at a missionary school. And he wrote it as if it was an autobiography, and he was Native American. And I think the story was actually that, and I really have to double check this, so I'm not sure, but a version that I had heard is that he was not, and he actually had a background as like a racist. But that his guilt, because this book is book is definitely like, it's not, you'd read it and you'd find all sorts of problems or whatever. But it was a book written for its time to be about white racism and murder and cultural elimination of Native Americans. So I was about to make a Little Tree joke, but I realized that's unfair to that guy.
Oh yeah, the Matriarchs, we read Little Tree.
Yeah. I remember I read Little Tree and I thought, Harvard's hiring.
Damn.
But like, why damn? That's the thing I don't get. Like, why? Like, we joke even about Bernie. Obviously, it's more affectionately because he's a good person. But like, we say all sorts of shit about everybody. People did. I remember when Kamala Harris went after Joe Biden, people put out the most wild memes that nothing offends me, but I was just like, really? Like,
right.
There was a meme that someone put out of Biden and Kamala and Bernie looking on, and it was like, cop beats creepy old man while innocent bystander looks on. It was actually pretty funny. But the point is, like, every candidate gets made fun of. Every candidate, like, Pete Buttigieg is a little sociopath. Everybody thinks that's funny. Everybody's on board. Everybody, and even with us, with Warren, it's just like, oh, whoa. It's like, no, because she lied about being a Native American.
The only problem I have,
that's funny,
isn't about Warren. It's about like Pocahontas. Like the memory of Pocahontas is something that actually like should have.
I don't use Pocahontas, right, obviously,
like,
but that's a problem because of
history
Warren and because of her,
right?
And because Trump is, will use. But again, but we don't use that. We use Wandering Dolezal.
As the sisters,
I gotta get this all out of my system.
As the sisters became matriarchs.
Yeah. What happened is, as the sisters became matriarchs. Anyways, I'm trying to hustle.
The ones that published Pow Wow Chow.
Yeah.
And they started getting really serious.
Yeah.
And when he takes some Chex Mix and he puts some peanut butter and chocolate chips in there, and it's just like how the Indians used to do.
And then you make one joke and you get swarmed with, that is not helping.
Like, say
you know
what
what's
you will.
not helping? Her.
Say what you will about like Bernie Sanders, going explicitly democratic socialist with that thing. At least he addressed the one thing that's supposed to be like his Achilles heel for his campaign. With Biden and Warren, those things are just like cordoned off until Trump.
No, yeah,
and
that's the part that's just crazy, because it's like, look, if we lived in a world where these ridiculous people ran everything, then we could say like, all right, it's wrong, it's stupid, it's counterproductive, but I guess it can work. But it's like a whole game that they're playing where it's like, yeah, I guess maybe you can, that some of that bullshit can muscle through in a primary all in time for Donald Trump to just to fucking float her over the plate.
Right.
For him, even with as slow as he is now, to just connect.
Eviscerate you. Like, totally, man. Nah, I mean, it's like, I don't know why. It's like, why people just can't call it out, man, for what it is. You know what I mean? But you know, Warren she's kind of slick with the way she maneuvers with these insults and things like that. Like I saw the way she was attacking Sanders, but she always made it look like she was being attacked, but you're the one that's bringing it up.
Always.
So it's like...
But the snake thing, too. Like, I'm sorry, but we're all familiar with the snake emoji before this Warren thing happened, right? Like, when the grass is cut, the snakes... That's a Jay-Z line, right? I'm not the...
I mean, snakes are snakes.
Everyone knows what that means, though, right? Like, this is an internet thing. Like,
no, what happened was Bernie Sanders sent us an internal memo that went out, and he was just like, snakes represent women in the Bible,
misogyny
and they are the fall of mankind. Like, use it for Elizabeth Warren.
I went through a couple weeks ago and said, this is just a tweet about basketball players, and then I went through and retweeted them. A whole bunch of basketball players at like different times the last 10 years have tweeted the snake emoji about George Karl, an NBA head coach. And so I just retweeted all of those because there's people who literally like are going on the impression that Bernie Bros invented this to be like some sort of Adam and Eve reference to the snake. Like
exactly
it's something
what they're thinking
thing.
about. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's when the grass is cut, you see something you didn't a threat that you didn't know was there. All of a sudden, you see it there.
Right.
That's exactly that describes Warren's campaign
grass
perfectly.
And all of a sudden,
I'm sorry, she's perfectly embodied what that meme means.
And I'm sorry that people. I mean, there was a time where we would just do a segment like, hey. And, you know, do all the usual stuff that you had to do with her, supposedly. Like, oh, she's great, and Wall Street, and yada, yada, yada. But you know what? She voted for all of Trump's military budgets, and she's cool with, like white phosphorescing Gazans. So Bernie's making some good steps in that direction. So can we talk about her record? That's not helping. And I think, that's the thing. It's like, it's simultaneously the left being so soft and naive, and also then just this liberal, again, it's that, and that's what the whole, and by the way, that is where like the broader population of people really just hating all that shit comes from. Because it isn't just, like, if I would have been livid at the time, of course, but if Warren just came out and she announced, she's just like, here's the thing, I'm younger than Bernie, woman's more history than Jew, and I'm smarter, so I'll get it done. I would disagree. It might be so blunt that Bernie would finally do something about it, but cool. This is a competition. But instead, that's what they did for a year, but because it was barely concealed subtext, anytime you're just like, hey, well, why does Bernie have so much better of a record than her? And why is it that when Bernie was, getting people off the street and into homes in Burlington in the 80s, she was voting for the Reagan Revolution? Well, that's not unity. Yeah, I know it's not unity. They're running against each other. Oh, well, really? Because then there's going to be a brokered convention. I mean, mental masturbation is not political strategy. And folks just need to look because sometimes the snake is there. You don't even need to cut the grass. You just need to look. Napoleon Da Legend, you're the man.
Yo, thanks for having me.
Talked about all the ways people can find you.
www.NapoleonDaLegend.com. Twitter is Team NDL, Instagram, Facebook, Napoleon Da Legend everywhere. All platforms where you listen to music. I have a Patreon too. So join that. I'm gonna be giving
I'm a member.
A lot
great.
Of yes, and a lot of albums, a lot of projects coming out. So be on the lookout.
Guys, you all are great. Tomorrow you have a think tank, and Wednesday, not normal schedule yet. Adolph Reed, Liv Franzik. Appreciate all of you.